What's up, everybody? They said we couldn't do it. They said we'd never do it. And what is that? Record another episode of Vinecast. We are back. We know we took a little bit of an unofficial hiatus. Summer's got hands, y'all. Like the scheduling is hard. Everyone's been very busy. But me and Alex, we are back. We are excited to discuss. We miss Alan. Unfortunately, the t-shirt game is at an all-time low without him on the pod. He was rocking his custom embroidered t-shirt at the match this past weekend. It looks really great. He'll have to post a link to it on the River City 93. But we are back, and we are excited to discuss a whole lot of Ivy results. A mixed bag, wouldn't you say, Alex?
I would. And also just like the one thing that we miss most. Alan brings a lot of things to the show, but the thing that he brings the most is the visual side of the podcast with his jersey presentations and always rocking something new.
Yes.
And I don't know, now if you're watching the podcast this week, you just have to look at us fuddy-duddies, I suppose, you know.
Podcasts are famously a visual medium. Everyone has always said this. So yeah, it'll be a little bit duller today without him, but we will be back. We'll have a couple more episodes before the end of the season because the Ivy actually have a bye week this week on the weekend. So there's no match this weekend. And then they play again next Thursday and then Saturday. So it's a sprint to the finish, just like this season has been.
It would have been nice to get that bye somewhere around the Cup week instead of being at the very end of the season when we, like, playoffs wise, kind of have not much left to play for. Spoiler alert, not much left to play for, unfortunately. But you know, rest is good, and we still get another game at home at City to be excited about. And we've also seen, again, spoiling it again before we even get into this, but like we've also seen some really, like, I feel like we've turned a page in the last couple of games. We've been an exciting team to watch, which we've kind of been waiting for. And the future is looking much brider than I think it would have been if we would have come at you guys live a couple weeks ago. So yeah, this will be a much happier podcast.
Yes, we've had some time to actually, the team, it's really a shame that it really is only an 8-week season because you get the roller coaster that you normally get over like a 35 week season condensed into 8 weeks. So playing twice a week, and you know, you get the team off to a hot start like we saw, you get a win at home, everybody's happy. Then the mid-season, the problems, I guess, start to appear. But then the problems start to resolve and you get goals again, you get wins again, and then the season's over. So
yeah, it's insane. Like you cannot have a stretch of bad form at all. Like it almost feels like a game or two games will just like completely doom your season in this format. And I understand that there's like not much that can be done about that because they're playing in between college seasons and there's like a billion rules for why the schedule is the way it is. But it's tough to swallow as fans of a team that has so much talent, and we've seen that on display, especially the last couple of games. And you know, we slipped up a couple times, and it's like it's I don't know, it's not over. Like there's still a lot to be excited about and stuff, but it's we just kind of missed out on our shot at the playoffs because of it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think when you look across W League as a whole, pretty much every team that's going to make playoffs is undefeated. They haven't, you know, there might be a draw like once across, you know, Annapolis, top of our division by a long stretch, has one draw. But
who was that draw? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's us. We did that.
It takes a lot to be the team that draws the team at the top of the division. Right. Everyone always says this. But yeah, it's definitely tough because, you know, in other leagues also where you have more to play for, you know, those teams are fighting for their lives because, you know, they might be fighting relegation or something. And instead it's just points taken off us for a team to be rotting in fourth place in a, you know, regional division. So it's tough to take because the margins are so small, and every team that makes it to the playoffs across the country in this league is essentially undefeated. It must make for great playoffs. Of course, I'm never tuning in. My team is not in it. Apologies to all these wonderful pre-professional teams, but I will not be tuning in. Assume it makes for great football. These are great teams that are playing across the country, but yeah, you lose 2 matches, and so all of a sudden you kind of have nothing to play for except, your own self
Well, and
gratification.
like to add on top of that, like the USLW League, or at least kind of the way that the Ivy operate, and I assume that that's like sort of the standard across the league, is we obviously have players that have prior commitments to either national team camps or like Lord only knows what they're doing. I don't, maybe there's just like vacations sprinkled in there. I'm really not sure, but like we don't always have the full strength Ivy roster. And like if you go one game without that and you drop that game, then like there's a chance that your season's just kind of cooked. And yeah, it's tough.
No margin for error.
This is not a podcast, I guess, for like figuring out the USLW League as a whole.
No. I'm sure we've got thoughts. If you ask us, I'm sure we'd have thoughts, but
yeah,
nobody's asked us. So
I don't understand why. Like,
are we the only podcast that even caught? No, there's a podcast that called Protagonist, the platform. They cover W League. We might be the only one that has a dedicated exclusive podcast to a W League team.
But if we're the only one, that also means we're the best one.
So
something to keep in mind.
Let us know if we have competition and what we need to do to be the best, if so. But as of now, we'll operate in delusion.
We'll give ourselves that award, the Dundee for the
best W League podcast.
We should just like make that should be part of our like, I don't know, Twitter bio branding. Or whatever. Yeah, it's like best W League podcast, best team specific W League podcast there is.
It doesn't matter how many caveats, we will get to number 1 somehow. How many subcategories we have to create. But we are here to talk about it has been a second. We've got matches to talk about. We've been blabbing. We've been alluding to the fact that playoffs have drifted just out of reach. And so we will take you through what happened over the last 2 weeks that got us to this position. Because again, with this season as condensed as it is, you play 2 weeks and you go from playoff contenders to how many points back are we off Annapolis at this very
moment? We're 7 points back and they have a game in hand.
Yeah, 7 points back with a game in hand. You can't look away for a moment. So I also, candidly speaking, missed a lot of these matches. And my famous rule, no matter what team it is, if it's a team I support and they lose the game, I will not be rewatching that game. That might be my flaw as someone who is on podcasts about these teams and expected to speak about their performances. But I have a limit and I will not subject myself to misery in that capacity. I'm sorry, I'm not paid to do this, so I just won't. So I missed several of these matches while I was away at my high school reunion. So Alex will speak a little bit more in depth about a couple of these, but we last left you before the May 31st game away at Annapolis, which I think the headliner here was the crowd size, definitely.
Yeah, it was a weird crowd size too that we talked about. I think where it was like again with the doubleheader situation where the crowd was really big. The men played before, I think, is what we heard.
12,000, I think they got it there. They kicked off at like 5 p.m. or something.
Yeah. But then the Annapolis women, I think, posted an attendance that was smaller. I think it was like 7 or something.
7,500. Like still bigger than City.
They still set a record, but
yeah. But to be fair, compared to 12,000, 7,500 is not enormously bigger, especially when you consider that Ivy had 6,000 capacity sellouts last season. So at least our several of our players have played in an atmosphere like that before, but I imagine it might have felt a little hostile. I don't know how they do it up in Annapolis compared to
right. Yeah, this game, I was worried about this game because of like just what we talked about, the attendance being high. It seems like Annapolis is a program that is taking its teams very serious. And obviously they were undefeated coming into the game, so I was a little bit worried that we were coming into like a blitz of they were going to give us their best and they were a talented team. Those things are true. They are a very talented team. We obviously see that now a few games in the future that they're still undefeated and atop the division. We went in with sort of a depleted roster because I think this was the start of the international window too. So we were missing. I think we were missing Olivia for this game. We've been missing Cam for a while, and it was sort of like how are we going to hold up as a team, missing some of the leaders. I was extremely pleasantly surprised with the way that we played. We were in that game start to finish. It was kind of action packed. It ended 1-0, but the ball went off the post like 3 or 4 times, I think, or off the crossbar a few times. We dominated possession for different stretches of it. Sarah Rosenbaum, who we had seen for the first time the week before, came back and just continued to be electric. I mean, what a player she is, and really sort of like bolstered us in the midfield. I thought we had every right to walk away from this game with a result of some kind. It didn't end up happening. And this was kind of the point in the season where it did continue for a few more weeks after this too, where it was like, it just felt so unlucky for us that we just could not. We were creating great opportunities and we just could not find the back of the net. And yeah, that got us in this game, where we ended up losing 1-0. So
Yeah, they don't call those 6-pointers for no reason at all, because when you think about if that's a draw or if the Ivy nick a win there, obviously the table looks a lot different. But yeah, that's a lot of factors. The team, even last season, never had to really face a hostile crowd at any point away. Most of these players don't play in front of crowds very regularly. Maybe if they make it to the playoffs in some capacity, for their college team, but on the whole, playing in front of a crowd, and then you add a layer of possible hostility. They call it the 12th man for a reason, so you have to factor that in something like this. It's a big stadium too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's huge. The next 2 games felt very similar in the sense that we we just were in this funk on the attacking third, where we could create and just had such a hard time finishing. We scored in both of these games. So the results, June 5th in the Brandy Chastain Cup, we drew 1-1, and then we lost in pens. And then June 7th away at Charlottesville, we drew 1-1 again. Yeah. Both of these games were situations where we were up, and we just we continued to dominate, and we just, for whatever reason, could not put the second goal away to sort of bury the game. I felt like we were the better team in both of those games. And yeah, it was just we couldn't find the back of the net again. And you just started to wonder if this is kind of again, who we are, and if this is just gonna kind of be the luck of the entire season. The Brandy Chastain Cup specifically, the June 5th game against New England Mutiny was it was a really fun game, I will say. It was an interesting game because we had different substitution rules, and Alan and I were sitting up in the box, and we didn't know that at the start. And so we saw us making subs in the 20th minute, and we were like, "Oh Lord, what's going on here? This is getting out of control." But then it turned out to be you could just come in and out whenever you wanted.
Right.
So we literally stopped keeping track of subs because it was we couldn't do this anymore.
Do you feel like the match had it did that contribute to it feeling fun? The players felt a little fresh, because we heard from Owusu that, on occasion he's felt like the players have looked a little leggy out there.
Yeah.
You think they looked fresher as a result, or did it disrupt chemistry?
To me, I think it was we knew, or I think we had the idea up there in the box, just as a fan, that if we win this cup semifinal, then we get to host the cup final too. So we were playing for essentially an extra game at home. So everything just had a little bit more.
Plus, Brandy Chastain was rumored to be coming.
Don't freaking remind me, Kate. I'm aware.
Which I wasn't there, so I guess I have a little bit of emotional distance from that, because maybe it never felt like it was a possibility in the first place.
I will never be the same again. No, it was just it was one of those things where the game had a lot to it. We go up 1-0. Everybody's very excited. spoiler alert, we concede and it ends in a draw in regular time. It goes straight to pens.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's hype. Everybody's ready. I mean, it's a weeknight game, so like as hype as you can be on a
Right. And
weeknight
everyone's kind of like, all right,
when you
let's
need
wrap
to
this
be at
up.
home in bed. Yeah. But then then there was this like kind of crazy moment with the City Stadium announcer where she was like feeling it, like, and she was she knew that there was a lot on the line, and she wanted to make sure everybody else in the stadium also knew there was a lot on the line. So there was like a 45-second, that may be exaggerating, but to me it felt like an eternity of just like, and the girls are going out there and it's all on the line now, baby. They're going to bed. And it was just like,
Oh
I was
my
nervous
God.
already. And I don't know how nervous the girls were and how like worried they were about it and stuff, but I was kind of freaking out internally because I'm just like an anxious person.
Yeah.
And she just kept going and going and going and building it. And it was like, we know, like, we're aware, like, we need the girls to calm down a little bit. And it was,
Right.
it just kept
Maybe
adding and adding. And ultimately, their keeper made one save, and that was all they needed, which is kind of the old adage, I suppose, anyways. But they
I
ended up
heard it
winning
wasn't
5-4.
the best pen take.
No, but I also wonder, like, how often because they don't play many cup games in college and stuff. Like,
Right.
if you're
Well,
not
I
a
think a
regular,
couple of players, I'm like looking through my folder. I thought I'd written down in terms of like the numbers from last season because I had been tracking that. Um, how many of them take penalties?
yeah,
And I mean, I think Cam Simmons has taken a handful of penalties. Um,
yeah,
like it's there are very few of them that are even awarded
yeah,
in general.
yeah. Like I said, I just wonder, like,
Macy
were they
Landel
all?
took a penalty last season and she missed one. So she made one and she missed one.
Yeah. Well,
Taylor
I also just,
Bailey
I just
took
wonder,
one
like,
and missed one.
how many chances do they get, like, to take these in a season? Because like, you're not going to pens, and if you're not an attacker or like the pen taker on your
Yeah.
team, like, you're probably not getting a look. And
Those are the only
like,
two, according to my report. Like looking
yeah,
last season, they each made one and missed one. So we had two
yeah,
players that had a 50%, which is not great.
I got muted somehow. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, sorry. I was looking around. Okay, I'm gonna cut this in post, guys.
Okay. This is an Ava Pustover fan podcast, so like, I don't obviously mean to call her out at all, but like, it was her pen that got saved, and like, she's a defender. So in just like run of play game where somebody gets fouled in the box, like, is your center back or outside back the person that you're calling on to take that pen? Like, probably not. So I wonder how many opportunities she's had to be able to take those in games. And then also you add in the fact that like, they infrequently play in front of that kind of a crowd too. So there's that factor on it too, where
Yeah.
like everybody's there watching, and and the announcers hyped it up to oblivion, and you're terrified.
Oh, God.
So, but yeah, I mean, it was a cool atmosphere, I guess, is all I'm trying to say about the cup game. Like,
Yeah.
it felt like that we were playing for something more, which I think is exactly what you want out of a cup competition. And it was a huge bummer that it felt a little more, it stung a little bit more walking out of the stadium that night, knowing that like we had an opportunity to have another home game later on that we didn't get.
Yeah.
But ultimately that's sports, and that's what you want. You don't want to walk out of there being like feeling indifferent. You either want to walk out happy or like you missed out, I guess. So it is what it is.
Yeah. And obviously across those two games, shout out Sarah Rosenbaum. She had the goals,
Balling.
both of those 1-1 draws. So really glad wherever the heck they dug her up from in between match week 3 and 4. Really, she contributed a lot. I don't think she scored since, but 3 goals in her first 3 appearances was
And the like Rosenbaum and two Flamia midfield is just like a beautiful thing to watch.
Oh.
We've also been rotating Sarah Rosenbaum up top, I think, to like center forward sometimes, especially in that game when we were like giving Taylor Berry like a spell and then letting her back out there.
Mhm.
But we are just like a different team, I think, with Sarah and Jill and Sarah in the center of the field. And yeah, we're really fun to watch when that's kind of cooking.
Wouldn't it be nice if everybody was available all the time? Injuries didn't matter. Minutes management didn't matter. Maybe someday. And then, yeah, the last kind of, I think, frustrating bit about that is, at least in the Charlottesville match, which, again, that's a team that now we drew twice. We beat them twice last season. And so to then this season, especially with them as far down on the table, the points gap, they are on 5 points, and the Ivy and Virginia Beach are both on 12. So there's a pretty considerable points gap. They pretty much they haven't taken points off Annapolis or Virginia Beach. So to draw to them twice, as well as the second one being a 90th minute equalizer. Last season, the match away at Charlottesville was a 1-0 win, and obviously they were able to keep a clean sheet. So it really goes to show these sort of fine margins, and that, you know, these teams are putting in work in the offseason. Maybe Virginia Atlantic won't be as easy of a team to play next season. They'll put the work in. They'll understand the league a bit better, recruit a little bit better. So these teams also are upping their game in the offseason, because we beat Charlottesville pretty handily last season. They picked up a solid keeper in the offseason. Keely
Yeah,
Thomas,
no kidding.
former Richmond Ivy player, but
yeah,
disappointing to see something that felt like a guaranteed 3 points and then to drop 4 points on the season to them.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I think moving into the most recent two games, there was a moment in the Annapolis game where it was you and I up in the box, and we had come from these like not scoring a goal, needing a second goal to put games away and couldn't get them. And there was a moment in the Annapolis game where we went down 2-0 that I turned and looked at you and was like, and I am just like the pessimist of all time. And I turned to look at you and I was like, I just feel like this is over. Like I've watched this team, you know, week in, week out for quite a few weeks, and I don't know if we can do this, if we have this. And boy, did we prove me wrong. And it was amazing. Like that game felt like such a pivot away from what we had been seeing. And yeah, I don't want to, if you want to talk about it a little bit, like, just talk about the game, but it was yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I agree, because I think in Annapolis started so hot, and I'm looking through back my notes, and they had like 4 shots on target in the first 20 minutes. I mean, like they were running both wings over the top. Like it just felt like this barrage. And obviously they broke through and they scored twice in 7 minutes. And so you kind of felt like the floodgates had opened. Like, okay, they've had 4 shots on target. Now they've gone in, they scored twice. They've had 6 shots on target in the first 34. They've scored 2 of them. This team has, can't find a goal if it was right in front of their faces, except for Sarah Rosenbaum. Yeah, it kind of felt, both of us were looking out that window like, okay, we're in for a long night. And luckily, obviously the team that was on the field, I wouldn't say it was the strongest 11, but looking at it, there weren't like massive gaps. But Owusu had enough. And I think there was an exact correlation between him, from what I can tell outside of the the cup game with the looser substitution rules, and him making an early sub. He made 2 changes in the 36th minute, so a minute after they get their second goal. And he says, all right, this is I'm not happy with what I'm seeing. And in come Olivia Woodson and Mason Nelson, out come Morgan Oliver and Ava Pustover. Again, like this wasn't a extremely weak team like on paper, but it wasn't maybe necessarily our strongest 11 on paper. And it was that, instant impact. We're talking
Yeah.
Woodson scores the next minute. She scores in the 37th minute. So we go 35th minute, Annapolis scores. 36th minute, Owusu makes those two changes. 37th minute, Woodson gets us back in the game, 2-1. And I think that's something we haven't seen. I mean, we hadn't gone down 2 goals like that, but that decisiveness, that sort of like, this is not good enough, and I'd like to see this team playing better. I mean, that I think the mood was going down, and that turned it around. That gave us something to hang our hat on. Like, all right, maybe this team has some life in it that we haven't seen over the last 2 weeks put together.
Yeah, and I think that like that reaction of being frustrated, like we feel it, and um we're not out there. Like I think that like for Owusu, for the players, like that very human reaction of like, Jesus, man, like we've been going through this for the last 3 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever it's been, where we've been sort of like just slamming our heads against a wall trying to break through this. And then yeah, and I think Owusu, he attributed it to like legginess, I think, when you asked him in the post-game interview, and just like we looked tired, and we did. But there was also probably a little bit of a sense of like, I have to change something. Like things cannot continue like this. And credit to him, because they did not continue like that. Like you said, Olivia comes out and
Also,
puts one away.
she took a shot in the 37th. She scored in the 41st. So
Yeah, that's what I
it
had
took
too.
her
Yeah.
4 additional minutes after coming
How
on.
dare she wait so long? I know. Yeah, and then like, so the thing that I want to talk about in that game is like, ultimately finishes 3-3. We sort of just battled our way back into the game. Did we go down 3-1?
Yes, they
Yeah,
scored
we
in
did.
the 2 minutes, the second minutes of stoppage.
Yeah. So it was that like emotional roller coaster of like, we came back and like, we can do this. They score right before halftime, and we go into halftime and we're kind of like, oh man, like, are we back here again? And then in the second half, like, you and I were kind of talking about this before the show too, where to me, it didn't feel like anything tactically really changed. It didn't feel like we're creating chances that we haven't before. It was just like they just went in. Like Taylor Berry. So the second goal was a Taylor Berry header.
Mm-hmm.
And how many times have we seen this season Taylor Berry like get her head to the ball in the box and force a save out of the keeper this year? The third goal, just like an absolute wonder strike. I mean,
Yeah.
holy.
Dribbles through the whole midfield, just cutting up players left and right.
Yeah, and then Sarah Flamia goes bar down, like crossbar down and in, and it was like, wow, one of the better goals that you're going to see this year. But again, like, looks that Sarah has gotten, has confidently hit, and have either been a save or have gone just over or just wide, like things that we've done 10 15 times this year, and now all of a sudden they're in. And I think it was just like the mood shifted and the confidence sort of came flooding back in of like, yeah, we take these shots, we go after these balls because we can finish these, and that carries over into just a thrashing of what, like, poor Virginia Atlantic, who is the bottom team of the division, comes into a like resurging like Richmond IVY, very talented team, and just sort of gets like, gets the business end of that. One thing really quick I want to talk about is Sarah Flamia's celebrations. Like, she just is so nonchalant about the fact that she has just like broken all of your ankles and left your team like laying on the ground while the ball's in the back of the net, and she's just like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna go back to the midfield line now. And it's
that is my soapbox. I will say it is an ongoing problem in the women's game that they don't know how to celebrate goals.
We just need to bring Lo Labonta in and have her just like teach a class on.
She's literally the only one. She and Megan Rapinoe are the only two that actually knew how to take the moment when they'd scored a banger of a goal. Because you'd never see that in the men's game. I mean, you might see them running and grabbing the ball and doing the whole like hustle back to the half field gimmick. Like, okay, no, now we're going to go and win it. But you never see a female. You so rarely, I won't say never, because Lo Labonta does exist, but you so rarely see a female player take the time to celebrate the goal that she's just scored. They are incredible achievements. They're incredible team achievements. And you so rarely see them take that time to actually sort of revel in the moment. And the men don't have that problem of taking.
Chloe Kelly enters the chat, by the way. Like,
okay, well, I don't
there's a celebration.
So
that's
anyway. No, there's a handful of them across the game. I will say, the Super League is a little bit better about it, the English Super League, but it is an ongoing problem. Kana knew how to celebrate a goal last season. I think that's part of why she went pro, because she actually she had the infrastructure. But you see these players, they score these incredible goals and they turn around and they just stand there in the 18-yard box and they do a little group hug. I don't know why. I've talked to Suzanne and I've talked to Richard and Jess about it. I said, I don't know how you're not banging your head against the wall. You're getting terrible pictures. Like, when, you don't get any great pictures of them celebrating their goals, because it's just a little group hug in the 18-yard box. And
I do feel like, and we don't obviously know the players personally that well, but like I do feel like in the one instance that we had to interview Sarah, it was very like, she seems very even keeled, of like, she doesn't get too high, she doesn't get too low. It was like you ask her a question, she's like, yeah, the team played really well and the team did this and that, and it wasn't like you also see the downside of the men celebrating is sometimes in the post-game interviews or in just like their words and actions, you see a little bit of like arrogance, I guess is like what you want to say.
And I mean, to be fair, they're doing stuff that the ordinary average person couldn't. I wish more women had that sense of arrogance about them, because I get the humility. I understand that, there's pressure, there's societal pressure for women to not sort of act out in any way or treat themselves in like they have too much confidence. You see it happen to female athletes. You see how Megan Rapinoe has been treated by, men in the press. You see how someone like Angel Reese is treated in the press. When you have confidence in yourself and you are confident in your abilities and you treat yourself as such, you do get beaten down a bit. But, I sometimes just wish more women took that moment to celebrate their accomplishments, to celebrate their individual accomplishments. I love that the team, it's all about the team, but on the other hand, you're not all kicking the ball at the same time into the goal. Somebody's still, doing that work. And I wish more women across the board in the professional game and trickling down felt like they deserved to take, we don't have to restart the match 10 seconds after the ball goes in. You could take that minute. You could take that, goals are hard to come by. You don't score a goal every day. So it's okay to take that moment to celebrate. Get that picture for your Instagram. I mean, that's how you market the game too. I kind of come at it from that angle too, that, when you see on Instagram all the great pictures, they're not group hugs that get people excited to come to games. It's the players shouting and cheering and screaming and pumping their fist in the air. And that's how you get you get people excited about the sport, is when the players look excited about the sport. And sometimes the humility sort of doesn't amp everybody up to the same degree. We want to celebrate you with you as a crowd, and sometimes it feels like the players don't bring the crowd in to their
side. But what it was, first of all, totally agree with everything that you just said.
My soapbox, I've said it before. Everyone's
the thing that I will say is that like part of that is on us a little bit, because 95% of the games that these girls have played in their career, or 90%, I don't know, like college crowds are oftentimes not the biggest, and so it's like I wonder if you're just not used to that, where a lot of times those like big celebrations are, like you said, involving the crowd and getting the crowd into it and running over and sort of like amping up the supporter section and stuff. And when that doesn't exist at these college games, then it's like, well, what am I gonna do now? Like, I'm just gonna yell.
I will say though, it's interesting. The Richmond Academy team, the boys academy,
They
they
do it anyway.
celebrate
Yeah.
every goal. They find
Yeah.
the camera. You know, they know where the camera is. They know where Jess is, and
Yeah.
they run over to the camera. You know, because she's always at the goal scoring end, and they run over and they like take themselves first, and they do whatever they do with their hands, or they like pump their fist. And it's just so funny to see, you know, these. I mean, I guess they're similar in age, but a lot of these are high school boys. You know, they're
Yeah. Yeah.
and, you know, they know where the camera is, and they are running, they're getting their shot, they're taking that moment to celebrate, they're running to the corner, and you just don't see that in the women's game. And, you know, I'll just keep saying it. I don't know if it's because enough female players haven't heard someone say, I want you to celebrate. I want you to take that time. I don't know. I don't know what it is, because again, it starts at the top. You know, you see these, I don't, maybe again, this is my soapbox. You see women saying, I want to carve a path, you know, I want to show women that, but they don't celebrate. And so maybe it starts at the top too, maybe more top female players, because they don't celebrate either. I complain about it all the time. You see people scoring like equalizing goals in NWSL championships and not celebrating the damn goal, and just like doing a little team hug and like running back to the center circle. It starts at the very, very top. Like, you know, I've seen awful goal celebrations at the World Cup. Like, there people aren't even celebrating goals at the World Cup. So that's my like call out to like every female player is like, please start celebrating your goals. Please start taking the time that you deserve when you've accomplished something like this. You've scored a goal like this. Men score after they've scored the 5th goal in a freaking rout. Like, they don't care.
Yeah, my call out, the end of my soapbox, is go watch a women's college soccer game. Like, if you want to go to a VCU game or a U of R game and watch Fitzgerald, or if you want to go to VCU and watch Ava Pustover, hit us up. Let's all go. Let's bring let's bring the Vine Guard to some local college soccer games and give them some people to cheer with and celebrate with and that kind of stuff. So we've kind of ranted about that for a while, so maybe we should move on. But
and that brings us to our nice 5-0 rout. I think City Stadium has been looking for a result like this for a while. It definitely felt good to see a team that had refound its form a little bit, because these goals came from all over the field. I mean, we got the second Flammy assist or goal, but not from the source any of us were thinking. It's Molly on the board against Virginia Atlantic.
Yeah, if like we talked about this before, if in May of 2024, like we would have told you that Jill Flamia will be the final Flamia to score for the Ivy, I think all of us would have been quite shocked at that timeline.
Yeah, agreed.
So, but shout out Molly. Like, I think, and Owusu said this in the post-game interview, just about how like Molly has kind of like grown into the game and earned her minutes. She came in the Annapolis game in like the 60th minute or 65th minute. Like, she came in with a lot of time left in a very crucial spot, which just shows, I think, how much Owusu trusts her to contribute. Because I think we talked about that, like the subs in the first half. I think early in the season, it was like, let's change keepers, let's, you know, kind of try some things out. And as we've gone on, especially when we went through that sort of cold streak, I think Owusu's been like, let's win the games. Like, I'm going to coach to win. And I think to an extent he's always been doing that, but it's been more evident recently. And so to put Molly in, knowing that he is coaching to win the game, just shows how much he trusts her. And watching her on the field, she's earned that 100%. And she's really fun to watch, and just really excited for her future.
And I like, you hear this all the time, but like, players grow when they're put in matches surrounded by teammates that are maybe a half step better than they are, against opponents that force them to raise their level. That's where players develop. And I think we've seen her develop. She's gotten meaningful minutes over the course of the season. And I think this is the first time she's started. And you can see the growth in the confidence. It's even, you know, it's small things like how quickly you're put under pressure. Because, I mean, she's a high schooler. She's 16, 17 years old. You know, the pressure that you're put under, even in your ECNL matches or whatever, are not going to be the same against playing players who are in college, who are just that half step quicker, who right now you're getting all the best players from an ECNL region, as opposed to, you know, going down a level from that. And players develop quickly in an environment like that. And things like their first touch gets cleaner and they're more aggressive. She's taking better touches. She's getting forward more quickly. She's looking to take opportunities on that maybe she wouldn't have thought about when she was making, her first substitute appearance. So you actually can see the development in real time across the season like this, condensed as it is, just because when players are put in environments where the players around them are better, their opponents are better, and they have to rise to meet that level. She's a player who's absolutely done that. I wish almost that we'd gotten to see a player like Annabelle Scherer a bit more, who's been away on international duty, which is also a great pool of players, but something like that, because I think we've seen Molly's growth more so than maybe some of the other academy level players who are in this pool.
Well, and that's what I was about to follow up with too, is like that is something that makes the Ivy incredibly interesting. It's like the trialist story of Josh Kirkland, right? Of like some you see it, I feel like more frequently with the Ivy because the roster is very like fluid and we're kind of pulling in academy players and that kind of stuff all the time. It's like I remember sitting here talking about in the beginning of the season, it was like, and we got a different Molly, or we got a different Flammy on the bench, one that we've never seen before, Molly. And it was like, and we obviously felt the same thing when Annabelle Scherer came in, and it was like, we didn't get an announcement about these players. We didn't know anything about them. And then you see them out on the field and you're like, oh, okay. Like there's something there for sure. And just to see them develop and kind of be these like fun little surprises to the Ivy roster and to our viewing experience, I think is really exciting. And then also selfishly, like we get hopefully multiple more years out of them, like if they keep coming back and we get to imagine like Jesus, like 5 years from now when Annabelle Scherer and Molly Flamia are like going into their senior season in college, and it's like, oh, I remember like, the first time we saw them forever ago, and they are just absolutely dominating on the field. Like I think that will be a really cool experience.
Yep, agreed. And some more usual suspects in our goal. Olivia Woodson gets a couple. She was on halftime sub, so I mean, she made the most of the opportunities that she had. That's her now. That's 3 goals in 2 matches off the bench for Woodson, which I think goes to show that maybe Owusu is mixing up his starting 11s and is trying to give more players those minutes. He's willing to push the panic button, when needs to get back in the game, but Olivia to still be that fresh. And this is as many goals as she had before that sort of mid-season drought. So she had a hot start and hopefully we'll end the season hot as well. Needed that. And then, of course, a Taylor Berry goal in there as well, which is great. She's scoring with her head and her feet. So it's good to see her getting on the board in multiple ways, especially after a frustrating run of matches for her.
Yeah, I think for us, it's like just feels like a weight off our shoulders of like, if we feel this way, then I'm sure it feels this way times a billion to them because we've been watching how hard they've been working, all the chances they've been creating, and like just to see that finally them be able to cash those in. Like it was in the post-game interview of the Annapolis game with Sarah where it was like, how did it feel to like finally sort of like pop the lid off of the goal scoring? And she was, it was basically relief is what she felt more than anything else. And yeah, that's nice. It's always a good feeling. The other thing I was going to say about maybe not starting Olivia Woodson is like, no disrespect to Virginia Atlantic, but I think Owusu was like feeling like we could get away with a side that maybe wasn't quite as strong going into that game with the bottom team of the division. And then he even said in his post game, like he wasn't thrilled that they were only up 2-0 at the half. And then he was like, yeah, let's push the gas and make sure we don't backslide to where we were. So
yeah, it only takes 1 goal, as the Ivy proved
exactly
before. And also shout out Cameron Miller getting a clean sheet, a 5-0 win. Being in goal for that is pretty special. So happy for some more players to record, clean sheets. Love to see the goals, but love to see the defenders. Nobody made any silly mistakes. Nobody sort of made any massive errors. Even when you're playing teams like that, goals off set pieces can, happen at any time. You can kind of let your guard down. or, not play quite as tight. So it was good for them to actually see the clean sheet out as well, since there's been some there haven't been as many clean sheets as maybe we would have hoped so far.
Yeah, but I just to me, the defenders haven't been the problem. Like when we give up 1 goal 3 games in a row, it's like I would have rather had a clean sheet, but that's not a stretch that I think we should get 2 points from.
Yeah.
It's just been sort of the how do we finish, and
you have to finish your dinner.
being very unlucky. Yeah. So any whoosies.
Yeah, so despite those 2 positive results near at the end, the playoff picture is not looking pretty. As we mentioned earlier, Annapolis is on 19 points with 7 matches played. The Ivy are on 12 points after 8 matches played. Virginia Beach also on 12 with a game in hand. So the playoffs are I think a miracle would have to happen, including somehow Annapolis getting a points deduction or something. Maybe they've broken the transfer rule that we don't know about. We can get W League on the case, but otherwise, not sure the playoffs will be in the picture for the Ivy. There are some rare cases where a second place team can make the playoffs when they need to sort of balance the numbers. They need everybody to have an opponent in the next round, but you do have to be pretty high on points in that second place team. So maybe we'd have to win our next 2, which includes a match away again at Annapolis. So,
and as the resident pessimist, let's just assume that we're out and then be pleasantly surprised if we somehow get in.
Right. Again, yes. Everyone pray for some sort of financial fair play violation in the W League.
Well, controversial take coming from the best USLW League podcast. There is hoping for other teams to fail the financial fair play rules, even though those probably don't exist.
If we're lucky, they're cooking the books somewhere in their unpaid players. I don't know where they'd be cooking them books, the hot dog stand, but we could get lucky. Maybe every other division, everyone else will finish on 0 points and will be by default the only team to go through in second. But we'll save the full sort of playoff breakdown for a later episode when we're reflecting on the season as a whole. We couldn't think of, do we have any thoughts for a start bench cut for this week? I don't think we really had anything that made
we were cooking some things, but one, they weren't
right without
one,
Alan.
they weren't good enough, and 2, they don't feel right to do them without Alan.
Yeah.
So we'll try and come up with something better.
Yeah. If you have something that you really want us to discuss, please let us know. Otherwise, we've covered a lot of ground, and we've improved our ratio of minutes discussed to matches
we didn't really have a choice this time, or we would have been here for the next 6 hours. We didn't in the first episode, we didn't have a match to discuss. An hour and a half, so we would have been here infinitely. So
you guys are lucky. You guys are very, very lucky that we've gotten so good at this. We, just like the Ivy, we've also gotten better over the course of the season. We've gotten more efficient.
Yeah, we also hit a rough patch where our form was down. That we just weren't recording them. No, we were recording them, but they were so bad that we just didn't put them. We were just
for the sake of
you can't hear that.
We can them. Looking ahead, we've got 2 matches left in this Ivy season. They play at home, not this week, because again, they've got a bye this week. Again, all these matches in hand that we have over the other teams, just like the Kickers, in fact. Hopefully not an overinflated league table position because of it. I think we're 7 points ahead of Charlottesville, so we might be out of touching distance for 4th place in the league at least. So next Thursday, we'll play at home against Virginia Beach United. That's fan appreciation night, so hopefully we will see you all there. And then we end our season, unfortunately, away at Annapolis. And maybe they can break their own W League record and get a bit more than 7,500. Where did everybody go after that dang USL 2 match? Is the quality of play really that much lower? Annapolis citizens, you Navy cadets, stay in your seats.
Go off, Queen.
That's all I have to say on that. Do you have any final thoughts for the pod, Alex?
I do not. I guess I do. I said I do not, and then I started to give some thoughts. So that was a little
You
bit
lied.
fun.
Men lie.
The worst. I hate us. No, I think that one, I'm starting to get to a point where I'm like getting sad that the season's coming to an end, which is a huge bummer. But I am also like, the flip side is I'm pretty excited to dive more into college soccer this year, like the women's college game, and try to follow our local teams, but also like now I will have reasons to watch many some SEC games, some ACC games, and like keep tabs on the Ivy players. And yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling such a mix of emotions.
Yeah.
And I hope we finish out the season strong. And I want to start talking to players about like what their goals were for the season and if they feel like they've accomplished them, because I'm really curious.
Yeah, I know. And if any players or their parents are listening to this, we are so curious. We hope we'll have the ability to ask in some formal capacity, but we're so curious, like who is interested in pursuing soccer, after college, whether or not this is something that's just for the college game, whether or not that's something that really is a tool to help you get to the next level, whether that's here domestically in the Super League or going abroad like Kana did. There's so many competitive leagues, in Europe at varying levels. So it is really interesting to think about what mindset all of these players are bringing into these matches and what they're hoping to develop, whether or not it's shorter term for the upcoming college season, or it's for their, long-term career ambitions. It really is it's an interesting question, because ideally the more players who are looking to go pro, the more market there is for the Super League to expand more roster spots, in that league. It's really exciting. It's still a very, very small league. It's like 6-8 teams.
Yeah, and then the Sun just won it, right?
Yeah.
Spoilers. Sorry if
Yeah.
anybody was waiting to watch the final.
There was some controversy in the playoffs. There's no VAR in USL Super League, and there were some tight offsides calls from what I would tell. The Carolina Ascent got knocked out on a controversial extra time, possibly.
The drama.
Yeah, we love it. We love to see it. The Super League is serving it up to us. So hopefully we get more and more players coming out of W League, hoping to play pro, and we get more and more of these matches, more and more competitive professional games, and more opportunities to see these W League players outside of the college season. So
yeah, more players for us to root for in other leagues.
Exactly. So with that being said, make sure to follow River City 93 across all platforms. If you'd like to make a donation to River City 93, you can do that on Ko-Fi. That helps support things like the website hosting, the podcast hosting, all the great things to create the content that we're able to produce about both the Richmond Ivy and the Richmond Kicker. So thank you to everyone who's donated. We've got a couple more we've got one more home match left. So if you are still looking to make a gift to the Smoke Fund, hopefully we'll score a bunch of score a bunch of goals in that last season. We obviously beat Virginia United first match. They've gotten a little bit better since then, but ideally we'll still have some goals to celebrate. And we can put the Venmo, you can send money to the Smoke Fund in the episode description. So with that being said, I don't know if we'll talk to you next week because there's no Ivy game this weekend.
Oh, true.
So we'll probably come at you in another 2 weeks, a little break for your ears.
Just in case you're sick of us.
In case you're so sick. And then we'll have lots of end of season content because there's a lot to break down, and I'm sure we'll have a lot to discuss, and we won't want to trap you for too long in one episode. So with that being said, be easy and be safe.